In today's 444, I'm going to share with you how thinking about you as a bucket can help explain what financial planning is. Now, by considering you as a financial bucket, we can look at what's inside your bucket, what's outside your financial bucket, what's flowing into your financial bucket, and what's flowing out of your financial bucket. And we can look at what your financial future looks like so you can make decisions about what you might want to do moving forward. At the end, I'll also show you how we used your financial bucket to explain investment risk, investment return, and the impact of inflation. Right, let's get into the bucket video. Hey there, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, my name's Hugh. I'm a retirement specialist and money coach at Propositive Financial Planning based in the heart of the Cotswolds. And on this channel, we look at the tools, tips and money habits that help us make the most of our life force, and that's our time, our energy and our ability to live a life with more meaning and more happiness. It'd be great if you could like this video, subscribe to the channel and ring that notification bell so you don't miss out on our next video. Now, the best way to explain the financial bucket is for me to draw a picture. So let's pull up my iPad and let's get drawing. So the first thing to do when looking at your financial bucket is to draw your bucket. So here we go. Now inside your bucket, you've got your liquid holdings. So you've got cash, any ISAs, any national savings. If you've got a general investment account or any shares, they are all inside your bucket because your bucket contains your liquid assets. And that's money that you can access immediately or very quickly in order to spend it. Now, you've also got some assets outside your bucket. So you might have your main residence, and that sits outside your bucket. It's worth remembering that your main residence is a liability because it only ever costs you money. It doesn't ever generate any income for you. Your main residence will stay outside your bucket unless you decide to downsize or right size at a later date, in which case if you do decide to right size, when you move from one property to another, it might release some money that can fall into your bucket. Now you've also got a pension, and that pension sits outside your bucket. Some of it might be able to provide you with tax-free cash, and the rest of it might provide you with an income. And it sits outside your bucket at the moment, partly because of the way pensions were legislated against, and they're being outside your estate for inheritance tax. It's just a bit simpler to keep them outside of your bucket. You can't do anything with your pension until you're at least 55, and in 2028 that's increasing to 57. So it kind of makes sense to keep it outside your bucket. Now you might also have a business, and I'm going to represent that by some old-fashioned factory, some smoke coming out. And if you decide to sell your business at a future date, then that can drop into your bucket. You might also have a portfolio of rental properties, one or more rental properties. And again, they stay outside your bucket because they're assets that you can't spend. You can't go and spend a house. You can't take some bricks from a house and go and buy anything from Tesco's, just like you can't spend anything from your main residence. So they sit outside your bucket, but they might at some point drop into your bucket. And those things sit outside your bucket and inside your bucket, but you've got some payments going into your bucket. You've got your income, so salary going into child benefit going in, rental income, if that's your thing, and they're all going into your bucket. And then at some point those incomes are going to stop, and we've got some future income. We've got state pension, other pensions, and they're going to fill up your bucket. And if this is all that's going to happen, everything is fine and dandy because your bucket's just going to fill up. But there are some taps on your bucket. And there are 4 taps on your bucket. The first one I'm going to consider is one just over on the side here. This is for draining money off in big one-off lumps for ad hoc expenditure, like paying for a child's wedding or replacing the kitchen or going on a dream holiday. Big one-off expenses that don't happen very regularly. And then we've got some regular taps that drain money out of your bucket. And the first one down here, this is the cost of your current lifestyle. And at some point, we're going to stop that tap and we're going to turn on another one, which is a bigger tap, and that's the cost of your desired future lifestyle. And it might be that you want to have a much better standard of living in retirement and do some things and spend more money because you've got more time to do the things you've always wanted to do. And then we're going to turn off that tap and turn on another tap, and it's much smaller expenditure. And this is the cost of your lifestyle when you're old and decrepit and your knees have gone and you can barely climb up the stairs of your own house, let alone the stairs of an aeroplane taking you on a long haul flight. And then that expenditure gets turned off when you end your life and you finish in a box. And that's going to happen to all of us. And the role of financial planning is to find out exactly what's going to happen to your bucket. Now, one of three things is going to happen. Either your bucket is going to keep filling up and filling up and filling up, and then it's going to overflow, or the level's going to drop down until it runs out and then you run out of money, or it's going to be about right. And they're the three scenarios. And what we want to make sure is, we want to make sure that you can avoid the first one and the second one. We want to make sure that you're Goldilocks. Not too much, not too little. And the challenge for financial planning is to look at what's going to happen to your bucket. Now, if your bucket is going to run dry, that's quite bad, because it means at some point in the future you're going to have to really cut down on your expenditure. And what that means in reality is you're going to have to reduce your standard of living. Your living standards that you've become accustomed to have to stop because you can no longer support them financially. And so you'll have to make big cuts to your finances going forward. And that can be difficult to do as you get older. The alternative option in some ways is even worse, and that's dying with too much money. Because not only have you paid tax on all the stuff you've bought and all the money you've earned over the years, there's a chance that your estate will be too big and you'll be liable to inheritance tax. But that's not the major reason why having your bucket overflow is bad. The reason that having your bucket overflow is bad is because you didn't spend enough money. You got to the end of your life with too much money, and now it's too late to do anything about it. And knowing that you're going to have too much money means that you can do something about it now. You can work less, you can finish work earlier, you can spend more in the active phase of retirement. You've got all these options rather than work, and then realise that you've got too much money to spend. And it might sound crazy, but I work with a lot of people who have kind of transitioned into retirement and are now old, and the older you get, the more difficult it is to spend significant amounts of money. It becomes much more of a challenge for people. And so knowing what's going to happen to your bucket is an essential part of financial planning, and it's what we do to help people understand what their financial future looks like. Now, the final thing that we can do is to use the bucket to explain about investment risk, investment return, and inflation, all of which can have a big impact on what's going to happen to your bucket. And the current inflation picture, as I'm recording this, August 2022 in the UK, inflation figure was published today of 10.1%. So prices are 10.1% more expensive this month than they were 12 months ago. And so knowing about inflation is essential. So here's your financial bucket, and the way that we look at investment risk is your bucket is out in the open air, and out in the open air it is at the mercy of the elements. And it being the UK, it rains a lot, and August 2022 it's sunny a lot, and so we can look at the rain. So the rain can fall into your bucket, and that's going to make the water level rise, and that is analogous to investment growth. So the investments that you've got in your bucket are going to grow because the rain's going to fall in them. But sometimes the sun comes out, and when the sun comes out, we can have some evaporation, and the level of your bucket is going to fall. And this is the equivalent to the markets going down. So you've got the rain, which fills your bucket up because of investment growth, and then you've got the evaporation from the sun, which lowers the value of the bucket. And finally, we've got a hole in your bucket, and that hole is inflation. And that's going to drip money out of your bucket every year. And that's going to cause the level to fall. Now, how can we use investment risk, investment return, and inflation to explain what we do with our clients? Well, we can have different levels of investment risk that will give different levels of investment return. So when you think about the bucket, think about putting a lid partially on or completely on that bucket. If we put a lid on the bucket and it's partially covering the bucket, then we'll collect some rain and we'll have some evaporation. If we have no lid at all, then we're open to the elements, and that's kind of the highest risk investment. But we could also put a lid completely across, and this would be the equivalent of having everything inside the bucket in cash. There's no chance of getting any investment growth because £1,000 in cash will always be £1,000 in cash, and there's no chance of any investment loss because £1,000 in cash is always £1,000 in cash. And interest rates are pretty low, but here's the thing with that scenario in cash, there's always inflation dripping money out of the bucket. And inflation is dripping money out of the bucket at 10% per annum at the moment. So the spending power of your money is going down at 10% per annum currently. And so you need an element of investment return for your bucket to try and beat inflation. And that's how we can use the bucket to explain the importance of risk and return, the sun and the rain, and the fact that everybody's bucket has got a hole in it, and that hole is draining money out, and that is inflation. So that's the bucket and how we use it to explain financial planning to our clients. If you like this video, you're going to love the video that Sarah did on financial forecasting, which you can see there. That explains, or that shows you how we actually put the bucket into practice using the financial forecasting software that we use. And up there is a link to our 444 playlist, so you can find more videos like this. Now don't forget to like the video, hit subscribe, and ring that notification bell so you don't miss out on our next video. Until next time, take care.